Hey there, fellow classic comic collectors. As always, I'm Scott Harris King, and today I'm back with another installment of Vietnam through the lens of romance comics. And today I have another Charlton joint because, as we know, Charlton leads the way when it comes to talking about Vietnam and romance comics. This is one of my favorites. It's Sweethearts 129. Not only is my copy really gross, like it's not just tanned, but it's like stained and it's gross. It's also completely misprinted in a in the like as bad as possible because the you'll notice here I'm at the centerfold and there's the splash page. So the first half of the book is printed in the back, and then it starts on the front with the second half of the book. So, yeah, good old Charlton. But once you figure out where the pages are supposed to be, you have this. It's Till Death Do Us Part. And it is dated November 1972, so it's quite late in the Vietnam experience. Just a few months before the U.S. announces that they're pulling out of Vietnam. And this has some really cool art from someone in one of their, I think it's one of their Filipino artists. They had a lot of artists that they were using from South America and the Philippines, so it could be a South American artist. I'm not familiar with the artist, but it's an artist named Trigo. One thing that a lot of these artists do during this time at Charlton from this school is they'll sign individual panels like this. So even though there's no credits, they get credited anyway. And it is a little weird that there's no credits this late into 1972. But this is unusual in that it's a full-length romance story. So it's the entire comic. There's like two little one-page things at the end. But it's a full-length story. And basically the way the story goes is we have our couple, Dee Dee and Joe. And Joe is this super nice guy. Everybody loves Joe. Joe's so nice. And they're going to get married. But she gets an opportunity as a model. And so he's like, I understand. You go, follow your dream. And then we'll get married when you come back. And she goes off and she does well. And so she's like, I still want to get married. But I've got this job opportunity in Paris. That I'm going to come to Paris to model in Paris. And he's like, I understand. It's fine. We can get married, in the fall after you've gone there. So she goes there and she gets like more and more popular, and she's kind of like, oh, I don't know, I want to get married, but I really want my career and stuff. And so meanwhile, he's people are constantly saying, oh, he's too nice of a guy. He'll never get ahead because he's always putting other people first. He ends up volunteering to go to Vietnam. And he's like, well, someone's got to go, so it might as well be me, so it's not somebody else. He goes to Vietnam, and they show him in the trenches, and he's like, there's not really trenches over there, but, foxholes and in the jungle, and he's like, always saving people. He's the lieutenant, and he's always rushing out and saving people. But he's also getting like all these fashion magazines and stuff showing that she's like making out with other dudes and all the gossip rags, because now she's like this world famous model. And so they're contrasting where she's like, living it up in London and Paris, and she starts to sort of be like, he's writing her letters, and she's kind of like, oh, I wish this guy would stop writing me letters. It was nice while it lasted. But at the same time, she starts to be kind of like, everybody, all they care about me is for the money. I'm just a commodity to them. But Joe loved me. So anyway, she finally, they set up one of these tours, one of these things where they're bringing the celebrities over to Vietnam to raise the troops' morale. So she decides to go so she can see Joe. And when she gets over there, she finds Joe, and she gets him pulled off the front line so they can come back and have a date. And she's like, oh, it's so good to see you. It's so, it's great that you're here with me and not in danger anymore. But he's racked with guilt because his men are still out there without him while he's living it up. And so she tries to actually get him to marry her while they're there. She's like, we can get the chaplain on the base, and he's like, well, let's talk about it later. And then while she's sleeping, he leaves and he goes back to rejoin his men. And so she chases him out there, and by the time she gets there, he's been killed, mortally wounded, while saving more of his men. And here's the sequence where he gets killed by a grenade. He covers someone else to protect him from the grenade, and he gets killed. And she comes running in, and they have a few last moments together. And she's sort of heartbroken. And it's really interesting, sort of morality play. It's a little bit of a throwback to some of the stuff we actually saw at the beginning of the war. In that the message here is that our boys over there have it really hard, and so the people on the home front need to support them more. So a big lesson here is that she's selfish and he's very selfless, and because of that, she ends up losing him forever because she doesn't value what a great guy he is. She doesn't really give him the value that he has. And by the time she realizes that, it's too late. She's lost her opportunity to love, but also, he's died. So I really like this one. It's very different from a lot of the stories. There's a lot of stuff with her, showing her life, and it sort of only just cuts back to him once in a while. But it's a really good one. Again, it is interesting that it's coming so late. It's just a few months before the U.S. Announces they're pulling out in the spring of 1973. They don't actually get fully pulled out until the end of 1975, but they start pulling people out in 73. We're still going to have some romance comics that deal with Vietnam even after that, and we've already talked about some of them before. We still have stories that are sort of later on about veterans that have come back, but it's very late in the game, and you can see a little bit how the tenor has changed. We've seen some of the other Charltons where by the time we get to the end of the war, they're very much about loss and about sacrifice and sadness, and the survivors dealing with their loved ones dying. So at the beginning of the war, we're not getting that. It's much more of sort of a gung-ho, sort of pro-war message. This, even though it is talking about, supporting and valuing the troops, it still is part of that sort of late war thing where we're really focusing on the cost to the people left behind, which is of a piece with a lot of the later Charlton Vietnam romance stories. So that was Sweethearts 129. The cover says, "Nothing could come between Joe and Dee Dee. Not Dee Dee's career." Well, actually, it does come between them, but not Dee Dee's career, nor Joe's sense of duty towards his country. But then, till death do us part. I'm guessing there's probably 30 romance comics that have that as the title. So, good art, unusually long, detailed, and sort of moving story. So one of my favorites. So let me know what you think down below, and I'll see you next time.